choppy as fuck. Unplayably choppy. Glitchy. Glitchy, unplayable. Hi. Welcome to MAME Politics episode 53. The game I chose for today is a glitchy and unplayable game that MAME on the Pandora's box cannot emulate properly. So it's a total fuck up on my part. Hope everybody's well today. Hey, bayonets and harmonicas. You're the only person in the chat so far. How's it going? How's the global pandemic treating you? Is it going good? So, I'm going to have to pick another game because this is bullshit. I'm going to go with another racing game that actually runs smoother than this. This is interesting. Let's try this. Rad Rally. I don't know. Let's see if this runs more smoothly. So how's everybody doing tonight? Or is there anybody on MAME Politics? The MAME Politics channel? On a Friday night? Oh no, this looks like it's going to be choppy too. Let's try it first before we commit. God damn it. Yeah, this is really choppy also. It's a bummer. I'm going to try to load up something that at least looks good. Yeah, why is that one so choppy? What is this shit? Weird digitized wrestling game? Actually, you know what? I'll do this game because it has some nice FM synth. Doesn't have as good of graphics as some of those Sega racing games, but this is an Atari game with some nice FM synthesis that I enjoy. So, I've been doing a bunch of research on Operation Dark Winter again, but specifically the Bush administration's mandatory smallpox vaccination program that they were going to try to put into place. It was another prong of the Iraq War propaganda that followed anthrax. I didn't really remember it that much, but then I realized that Operation Dark Winter was actually not really about anthrax. Even though anthrax was mentioned in it, it's specifically about an imaginary terrorist release of the smallpox virus that would cause a global pandemic, starting inside the United States. And, the more I think about this COVID-19 pandemic situation, the more I realize that neocons specifically is how I originally learned of the idea of, a global pandemic shutting down the world kind of a thing. Oh, there's some nice FM synth. Ha! I got distracted by that. So I've been looking more into that and more into things that happened around the time period of 9/11, before and after 9/11, sort of in that 5-year span, before and after. And there's just a lot of interesting stuff that comes up for me. Also, I've been looking into trying to establish a chronology of who is pushing theories about it being a Chinese bioweapon or a U.S. bioweapon first. Where did those theories come from first, and who was pushing them out online first? Now, as far as I can tell, it was the U.S. media and U.S. politicians that were pushing out this idea before anyone else, that it was a Chinese bioweapon. Now, I'm remembering also other things floating around in the media for the last few years suggesting that a rogue Chinese scientist or a Chinese government, op could be behind a bioweapon attack of some kind, or that they're planning something really dangerous with involving bioweapons. I remember that being sort of whispered around in the media the last few years in general. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I'm trying to specifically track down what stories were around for the past 2-3 years in the media about that. Tietro says, "What do you think about the G5 theory?" I think you mean the 5G theory. I don't think there's any merit to it, Tietro. And there might be some interesting things to discuss about. Let me turn this down. Actually, wait. Yeah. Yeah. Nice FM synth. I think that there is some interesting stuff out there that I agree with in terms of how we don't understand what 5G will do once it's put out there, but I don't understand how it relates to the virus at all. And the way people have tried to explain it to me doesn't make sense to me. Steven Stern, I don't know why it's not showing it to you. I don't know. Maybe it's censored. Maybe I'm being shadow banned. I'm being shadow banned, dude. So, I want to know why Tom Cotton and other U.S. senators, and also Whitney Webb actually brought this to my attention, that Radio Free Asia in January of 2020 actually was putting out theories and quoting people saying this could be a Chinese bioweapon that was either accidentally or deliberately released. So that's really interesting to me that U.S. State Department funded media outlet Radio Free Asia was putting out that kind of information in January. And now we're here accusing the Chinese government of putting out dangerous disinformation when they say it's a U.S. bioweapon. The Chinese government and the Iranian government, as far as I can tell from trying to establish this chronology, did not start saying that about it being some kind of U.S. bioweapon or U.S. bioweapon attack until after U.S. Senator Tom Cotton and U.S. State Department funded media outlet Radio Free Asia started saying it was a Chinese bioweapon. And I think that's important Because if we're going to accuse the Chinese government of spreading conspiracy theories or dangerous disinformation, accusing the U.S. of attacking them, then we need to acknowledge and admit that people here were accusing the Chinese government of doing the same thing earlier than the Chinese government was accusing us of doing it. It's kind of like how we get mad at, how neocons get mad at Russia today for putting out 9/11 conspiracy stuff or things like that, when neocons were the ones who were accusing the Russian government of blowing up their own apartment buildings and blaming Chechens openly in books that they had published, David Frum and Richard Pearl. So I don't think we really had a chance to talk about Tulsi Gabbard endorsing Biden. Did we talk about that on here too much? I don't know if we did, but I don't know. There's not much to talk about other than it just reveals the fact that her entire campaign was fraudulent. Pietro, I think I'll read your question first. You asked, did you think that the U.S. blaming Maduro of narco trafficking is a way to avoid bad management of pandemic? I think that what it means to me, Pietro, is that the U.S. government and the U.S. empire has all these things on their agenda, things that they want to do in Venezuela, like overthrow Maduro, things they want to do in China, things they want to do in Iran. And this situation in general, this pandemic situation, is giving them an excuse to do things that they maybe, wouldn't have done normally because they can get away with it and not get negative press attention or too much focus about it. So that's all that really means to me. Obviously, the allegations are totally fucking false and ridiculous. It's very 80s style, honestly. It's like when we went after Noriega. Even though he actually was trafficking drugs, he was an asset of the CIA until we decided that he wasn't anymore. And then we flipped on him and accused him of being a drug trafficker. So how's everybody doing? Even if you don't normally participate in the chat, I want to hear from everybody. Because I haven't been doing these every day. And I know some of you have been having a hard time. Our trusty mod, Furious Psyop, has been having a hard time. He actually went into the hospital. I mean, he's been tweeting about it, so I hope he doesn't mind that I'm discussing it. It's not private information at this point. And he thought that he had COVID-19. He had flu-like symptoms. He wasn't doing too well. And I think that his symptoms have subsided. He's doing better. But, you're starting to hear stories out there about people who are coming down with some kind of sickness right now. Either they actually have COVID-19 or they're coming down with symptoms that, are really worrisome. I don't know anyone personally in my social sphere out here in the Bay Area who has it or who's sick right now. But I feel like that's not going to last for long. A Catch-22 says, I'm feeling a lot less anxious lately. I guess it's because I've been in 14 days of quarantine and I'm still healthy. A Catch-22, have you gone out at all into the public in this 14 days of quarantine? Because I was pretty much under 14 days of quarantine as well. Like not going outside, not making any contact with any human beings at all. And had to make a trip to the store, to the grocery store. And that felt really weird. It was actually really anxiety provoking. And now I'm just starting the clock back over again Now is day one. It's been 24 hours, um, which sucks. Then now I'm like worried I caught it again, um, and so I'm just counting the days, I guess now. So I'm anxious again. I wasn't before, and so I don't really know if it was worth going, to be honest, because now I'm all worried again that I have it. A catch-22. Are you going to need to go to the supermarket at any point? And where do you live, by the way? What part of the country do you live in? Yeah, catch-22. I think my thinking was my wife and I discussed it. We had different views on it, but I came to the agreement with her that if we waited too long to go and get some things that we really were going to need, if we waited like 2 weeks, then we might be even more scared to go out because there'd be like way more cases, and we'd be more paranoid about leaving the house. So we figured might as well just get it over with now, um, before things get even worse. So I don't know. I mean, it's just everybody, copes in their own way. It's just a crazy situation. It feels like, I open up the new Media Roots radio, which I think might be coming out tonight if Abby finishes editing her side of it. But I open up the podcast by saying it feels like still in a dream every day. I mean, if you watch the news, if you pay attention to the numbers and you look at these graphs and stuff, it feels like a bad dream. It's crazy. Well, that's good news at Catch-22. I didn't realize there wasn't very many cases in Massachusetts yet. There's not too many cases in Oakland yet either, where I live, the city I live in, which I'm kind of hoping that that's going to save me. The Bay Area in general is showing a flattening of the curve already in terms of reported cases and deaths. So that's positive. That's a positive sign. Jesse Snyder says, all right, I think I'd be safer back in China though. Yeah, I think you probably would. America, like I said on Twitter, is basically an experiment to see how far you can take capitalism without taking into account, human suffering, and just not putting it in the equation and not caring, essentially. It's a corporate capitalistic sacrifice zone. A Catch-22 says, the crazy thing is the police here in the city have caught it and the mayor called for the National Guard to do policing. Yeah, I think people need to stop being naive about what the National Guard's going to do, first of all. They're not some benign, medical assistance force helping build medical, tents and triage centers and things like that. They're going to do policing. J-Doll Music. Yeah, the beard's gone, man. Beard's gone. That's how paranoid I am. I figured if I'm going to go in public and wear a mask, might as well shave that shit off. Don't want to get any COVID-19 particles up in there. Who knows, though? It probably didn't do much to help me. So, Jesse, as someone who's familiar with China, I want your take on this because do you think that it's unfair that the blame was being rushed to blame it on China's wet markets so quickly? Or do you think that's fair? Because my perception of it right now is that it seems unfair and sort of xenophobic and a rush to try to explain a complicated, confusing, and traumatizing situation. And also, Jesse, what do you think about the way that the U.S. media covers China now? Have you noticed a spike in the way the U.S. media talks about China in terms of talking about China's human rights abuses and things like that? Oh, Tetro. I mean, I don't know what I make of Bill Gates lying about his friendship with Epstein. I mean, I think a lot of people at this point probably don't want anybody to know they were friends with Epstein. Who knows, though? Maybe Bill Gates was involved in that. It wouldn't completely surprise me. Um, but you say, and what about the pre-coronavirus simulacrum? Simulacrum. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I think you're talking about Event 201, the biopandemic, global pandemic, exercise drill, workshop, presentation. Hey, Terror Toddler, how's it going? If you're talking about that, I mean, I recommend everybody watch that shit. Recommend everybody check that out. I don't know what you mean, Terror Toddler. What do you mean it's not showing up in the browser? Is it because it's unlisted, maybe? Yeah, you know what? I think I accidentally set this as an unlisted stream. So hold on a second. I'm going to fix this. Here we go. Let's try this. See if it's listed now. I should have fixed it just now. So Event 201, if you guys haven't actually checked it out yet, if you've just seen conspiracy people talking about it, highly recommend actually watching it. Watching at least the first part of it, because it's really fucking creepy. It's so similar to what's happening now that it's chilling. People say that Contagion, the movie by Steven Soderbergh, is some kind of pre-programming, and it must have known something about what's happening now because it's so similar. Well, this Event 201 thing is so fucking similar to what's happening now that you'll be blown away by it if you haven't seen it yet. The main difference in it is that the virus doesn't come from China; it comes from South America. So that's worth checking out. Terra Toddler, I don't know where George Webb is getting his info from, but I was disappointed to see, and I think Aaron Nelson forwarded me something that was from Chinese state media talking about it being a U.S. bioweapon potentially, quoting George Webb. And I was disappointed to see that because it just, it seems like if you're working for Chinese state media, you would try to quote people who are more credible than George Webb. Just seemed lazy or sloppy to me to do that. Hey Modus, how's it going? Steven says, seems like they already knew back in October about this. Who's they? You mean China? Hey Trish. Hey Oz. Yeah, the beard's gone. Get used to it. Shit's gone, dude. And then I'm just going to grow back like a ZZ Top Alan Moore style beard from here on out. And I could grow a beard really quick, so like next week I'll have a full beard. And then 3 weeks from that I'm going to have like an Alan Moore beard. Get ready. Hey, Alex. A bird. So, bird and terror toddler. I thought it was hilarious that you guys got Glenn Greenwald to um, get upset. You both struck a nerve, and that was made me laugh. I just really enjoyed that. And how funny was it that he didn't respond to me? That he just went after you guys about like, and he almost like was going after you guys for the comment I made about Tucker too. In some weird way, it was fucking. Anyways, thanks for bringing me that entertainment. Grant, I mean, I think. Well, here's the crazy thing, Grant. So Grant says, "Hey, Robbie, what do you think landlords will do when many people can't pay their rent on the first?" Well, that's a good question. In California, Gavin Newsom actually decriminalized squatting. Well, not exactly squatting, but so when you evict someone, if you own property and you have a tenant, someone renting in your property, in California, and this is how it is in most states, it's California law that the sheriff, the local sheriff, is supposed to assist a landlord in evicting someone. So if they don't leave on the first when they've been evicted, um, then the sheriff is supposed to come help the landlord remove the person, like physically remove them or arrest them or whatever. Gavin Newsom actually said that it's decriminalized now to overstay after you've been evicted. So there won't be any sheriff enforcement of evictions currently until further notice. It's like part of like the decriminalizing. They've decriminalized a bunch of things right now, and I wish I had a list of them in front of me, but it's actually pretty crazy, and that's part of what's making conservatives really upset right now about things all getting shut down. Is even some of the QAnon people are starting to think that this is some kind of purge thing, where they're purposely releasing all these prisoners from jail in order to like kill pedo elites or something. I don't know, but yeah. So what is the deal with Eli Lake? He's an interesting rebrander, for sure. Chumming it up with Glenn Greenwald, giving accolades to Aaron Mate, Jimmy Dore, and Michael Tracy, saying that they were right about Russiagate, and then 4 years ago being one of the biggest pushers of Cold War 2.0 propaganda that was probably getting fed to him by someone in the Obama administration. Um, Weird shit. Really weird character, Eli Lake. Josh Rogan is more straight down the middle neocon. And he's some kind of vessel for insider propaganda, neocon propaganda. But Eli Lake is more interesting to me because he's trying to rebrand and trying to remain hip. And like Glenn Greenwald, just like fucking seems really friendly with them. It's weird shit. So does Jeremy Scahill. Adam G says the anti-Chinese racism is so real right now. Hey Adam, how's it going? Are you still working in the hospital, Adam? Are you still working in a hospital, a healthcare facility? What is that like right now? If life is a leaf, hi, how's it going? Health to you too. Terror toddler Nico endorsed Bernie today. Not surprising. I mean, the fact that he liked that Joe Biden tweet thanking Tulsi Gabbard was just, oh man. Anyways, it just sounds like petty inside baseball bullshit. Anyways, to even talk about this kind of stuff. Um, there was somebody in here earlier who I haven't seen in the chat before who said they traveled to China. Jesse Snyder. Jesse, are you still there? I want to hear from you about China. Some of these topics I bring up having to do with China. Because, being completely honest, I don't have a very informed perspective of it. I'm studying it more from the lens of American propaganda against China. I'm not really doing any commentary about what's actually going on in China, specifically in terms of their political landscape. Hey, Furious Psyop. Hey, man. Hope you're doing well. I was worried about you, dude. Good to see you. Jesse Snyder. Interesting point. You say definitely unfair. So Jesse's responding to my comment about if it's fair to blame the wet markets in China for the outbreak. Now, when you say definitely unfair, you say the government would shut them down if it was really a problem. Well, that's a good point, because we have this perception that China has this really authoritarian government that has everything on lockdown, right? That they wouldn't let anybody, they don't even let the Falun Gong practice their religion. That's the narrative that we get over here. So why would they let a wet market that has a potential to unleash global pandemics keep existing? That's something interesting. It's kind of actually just on its face, you have to wonder how both of those things could exist simultaneously. Hey, Ned, how's it going? So, yeah, Jesse, I mean, that's actually a really good point. I didn't really think about it that way. Now, we've been led to believe, like, there was this Vox video about the outbreak in China that came out like 3 weeks ago, that looking back on it, I think was kind of a propagandistic video. But at the time, I didn't really think of it that way. I was still taking in a lot of information. But in the video, they bring up how the government was responsible for creating a famine under communism. And obviously that part of it, I don't trust. I mean, it's probably on some level propaganda. But they were saying that these wet markets in China had to exist because of that. And like the government basically relied on their existence because so many people were living in poverty and had to eat wild game to survive. And I don't know if that doesn't fully ring true to me either. I mean, maybe there's some truth to that. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense for a society like China and the government that they're supposed to have to allow something like that to exist if it's that dangerous. I don't know. It's definitely something to think about. Jesse says, seems like coverage was slowly building with the Hong Kong and Uyghur stuff recently, then a serious spike after this all started. Really crazy. Makes me mad, honestly. Haha. No, that's I mean, that's my perception too. I mean, that this all started sort of ramping up against China, especially in the last year after the Hong Kong protests started. And then the Uyghur stuff, which I don't really know which coverage to trust about that. Pietro says, Robbie, why does China blame the U.S. for the virus? I think that they're specifically pointing to information having to do with an army exercise taking place in like near Wuhan. And they think that they are just basically leaning on this theory that people from the U.S. military brought it there, and they had infected people basically do some kind of military exercise there on purpose to spread the disease. Now, I don't know necessarily why or what exactly made China start talking about it, but like I was saying earlier when I started this broadcast, and you could go back to the beginning if you want to hear me talking about this, is that people like Tom Cotton, U.S. Senator, and media outlets like Radio Free Asia, which is funded by the U.S. State Department, were pushing the theory that China unleashed some kind of bioweapon, and that's what COVID-19 was in January of this year. So our government and U.S. Senator Tom Cotton was pushing this theory before the Chinese government ever said anything about it being a U.S. bioweapon. Ned Ryerson, I think it's now multiple people who've said it from the Chinese government. There was a guy from the military who said it, and a retired guy. I think that's who you're talking about. There's a guy from the Iranian government who said it, and Ahmadinejad, the former president of Iran, also said it. I'm really beginning to lean into the theory that this could be some kind of U.S. bioweapon. Either accidental or deliberate release. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's natural, but I don't think we can rule out the bioweapon theory at all. I mean, I think it needs to be investigated for sure. Oz Whistles, I didn't read your paper. I'll have to go look and see what you're talking about in my email, if that's where you sent it. Sorry if I missed that. Ned Ryerson says, if this is a U.S. bioweapon, does that mean SARS and other viruses were too? Well, that's a good question. I don't know about SARS, Ned, but I do know that I personally believe West Nile virus was a U.S. bioweapon of some kind. I believe Lyme's disease possibly is some kind of U.S. bioweapon. And I think even Ebola, the second outbreak of it specifically, could have been deliberately done. Maybe by the U.S. government, because it hit Liberia really hard, specifically. Now, I'm not saying Liberia is a U.S. bioweapon, but it could have been weaponized and used in the second Ebola outbreak. So I think depending on which thing we're talking about, there's evidence to suggest that in some of these instances, it could have been a U.S. bioweapon. West Nile virus, to me, is something I sort of accidentally landed on while I was investigating the anthrax attacks for the last anthrax podcast with Abby, and looking into Jerome Hauer, Rudy Giuliani, where West Nile virus originated from, how it was dealt with in New York, who was involved in dealing with it. It seems like a very suspicious event to me. And honestly, it seems like it could have been some kind of U.S. government experiment where they were willing to kill a lot of people in the process. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but look into it. It's just really weird how it just sort of came and went. It originated in upstate New York, not too far from Deer Island. where some people think Lyme's disease might have originated from. Oh, David, wow. I'd like to hear more about that. Did he get encephalitis, David? David says, my friend almost died from West Nile, was in a coma for weeks. Crazy. Pietro says, do you think this social distancing is going to affect social movements in the future, like marches, grassroots protests, etc.? I mean, yeah, I think that it depends on how long this goes on. It depends. I didn't do anything, Ned. Why are there so many dislikes? Oh, shit. Wow, you're right. What the fuck? Holy shit. Oh, man. Maybe it's the beard. They're just instinctively disliking that it's gone. No, I didn't put any toll cell bait out or anything like that today. I've been pretty well behaved on Twitter the last few days. I think. Bird Worldist says, will Americans ever start wearing face masks? Well, they're trying to shame us over here for having face masks. And there's actually disinformation put out, I think disinformation, by CDC officials and other experts saying that they actually don't help you to prevent infection. But when I went out in public last time, which was yesterday, to go to the grocery store, I'd say 50% of the people there were wearing masks, which was a good sign, I think. But I don't know what it's like around the rest of the country. This was in Oakland. But there were definitely people in the store who were not taking it seriously. Like they were just like walking straight towards you down an aisle, not abiding by the 6 feet social distancing recommendation, which to me, I think it's probably more like 10 or 20 feet. If these particles are aerosolized, I think if you're in an enclosed space with people, you're putting yourself at risk no matter how far away you are. So I'm paranoid I might have gotten it, just from being in the store. Terror Toddler, I was able to get gloves, but I don't think they're the nitrile gloves. I think they're just regular, like latex gloves. Change your gloves at least 3 times. Interesting. Why so many times? Ned, it's true. The Mossad is here to demoralize me during the COVID-19 pandemic. Wouldn't that be terrible if Israel did COVID-19 thinking that they had encoded some kind of bioweapon only to kill people, Palestinians, and they'd fucked up and then they accidentally released it and it just like kills everybody? That weird, really crazy Netanyahu tweet. Did you see that from like 2 or 3 months ago? Where Netanyahu basically like if you line up the tweet with the global pandemic, it's like, what the fuck? What is Netanyahu talking about? I don't have it up in front of me now, but if you guys saw that tweet, it's pretty scary sounding. Yeah, Adam G, it could be wiped out. I mean, how many ventilators does Gaza have? It sucks. Yeah, I mean, if somebody did this intentionally, it's like one of the craziest things anyone's ever done in the history of mankind. So that, like, we have to think about that. You know, if you thought 9/11 was crazy, some kind of like inside job hypothesis behind it, that whoever would have done that is fucking crazy. Like one of the most crazy events ever, 9/11. Like this is like 1,000 times crazier if someone did this on purpose. And I guess, you know, it's almost sound cartoonish, but I guess one of the ways we'll know who might have been in the loop on it is who got, you know, who was doing the most insider trading, who had a vaccine the earliest, who was how immune or safe from it the earliest. Even all these CEOs that stepped down. Did you know that January 2020 holds the world record? The most corporate CEOs to step down in a single month was January 2020. Something like over 220 corporate CEOs stepped down from their positions in January 2020. These motherfuckers knew something. Obviously. I'm not saying they did it. I'm not saying Bill Gates did it. But it's really, really weird. I mean, yeah, the ultimate insider trading. I mean, it's really dark. It's darker than insider trading on 9/11, I think. Because it's almost like gambling. I mean, so like insider trading on 9/11 would almost mean like this person would have had to have known that for sure some kind of airline crash was going to happen. You know, airline stocks were going to plummet. These insider trading people for COVID-19 global pandemic, I mean, I don't know. Oh, jeez. I don't even know how to articulate it. It's too dark. I'll come back to that if I can think of a way to articulate that. It's a dark winter in America. It's going to be a very dark winter in America. Yeah, so I think if you, I mean, you know, I don't want to encourage you to get too loopy, too paranoid, but if you can handle watching it, check out the Event 201 video. Check it out. At least the first part of it. I think it's like 8 parts. It's long. It's really, really long. But watch the first part of it because it shows you exactly what's happening now, unfolding in a fake simulated little global pandemic exercise. And I can't stress enough how similar it is to what's happening now. Like in every single way, except for the origin of the virus. It is a coronavirus in the simulation. It spreads at the same rate. They talk about all the numbers, the social distancing, all the same wording is the same. Quarantine zones. They talk about the hospitals being overloaded, the ventilators, the respiratory illnesses, the pneumonia. It's fucking crazy. So I recommend checking it out. Get stoned and watch it because it's very, very weird. Ermias Tar said, I heard there were 4 simulations, more 4 simulations done in the past year. Yeah, there were several other global pandemic exercises and papers released and briefings done with the Trump administration. There was actually one done between the Obama administration, the outgoing Obama administration, and the incoming Trump administration, a joint exercise. Back in like 2016. But I like to look back on Operation Dark Winter, which was the concept of a smallpox deliberate release by terrorists. If life is a leaf says when you buy stuff, store it for a few days. Virus lives on cardboard for 24 hours, plastic 3 days. Yeah, I mean, I've been so paranoid that I'll wipe everything down with bleach, even if I've left it for 72 hours and not touched it. And when I open a package from Amazon, I'll do it outside on my porch, wearing a mask, wearing gloves, take the stuff out of the package, wipe it off with some kind of bleach or disinfectant, and then bring it inside, and then take the mask and the gloves off. So that's how fucking paranoid I've been. I mean, I feel like a full-on germaphobe right now. I can't be the only one. I've never had these kind of tendencies before in my past, ever. We are watching Outbreak right now, says Isabel. How's it going, Isabel? Yeah, Terror Toddler. I mean, that was actually, it's not even by choice. It's just bleach was the only thing they had left at the store when we went on like admittedly a panic buying run 2 weeks ago. Um, they had a bunch of concentrated bleach left at the store. So I just pretty much bought like 4 bottles of it, knowing that we didn't have enough isopropyl alcohol. We didn't have enough any other kind of disinfectant. We just had some hand sanitizer and hand soap. So that was pretty much my only choice. And it's worked out. Oz whistles. I don't have any iodine. Unfortunately, gargling iodine. I'd never even heard of that. Oh, Isabel. Yeah, that's great. Isabel says we found bleach at the dollar store after going to a few stores that didn't have it. Jason Burmis also said something similar, that a lot of dollar stores still had a lot of stuff there. So, you know, if you can't find what you're looking for, try checking out another store. Hey, Tom, how's it going? Tom Collector says there's an interesting thing I'm noticing where people are more paranoid cleaning and less concerned about changing unhealthy lifestyle habits that make they more likely to die if they catch it. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a mixture of both. So I stopped vaping, although I'm still smoking weed. I stopped vaping because that shit scares me now. Especially after I've read stuff about how some of the vaping hospitalizations that happened in like November and October of 2019 might have been related to some kind of early COVID 19 outbreak that was here for a while before we like actually started realizing it was here. It has a pretty weird rash of all those vaping deaths and hospitalizations, strange. Popcorn lungs. I'm gonna play this game. I didn't even actually play it at all yet because when I opened this episode, I was playing the game Racing Hero, and it's too choppy. Let's play this shit. We're going rookie mode first. Nice FM sound palette here. I like it. Oh shit.
Approaching rally point.
Shit.
Shoot opponent for score.
Shit. Yeah.
Warning, low fuel. Eat lead.
No.
Danger, mines ahead.
No. Shit.
Shooting accuracy increases multiplier.
Fuel level critical. What a move.
Shit. Ah. Oh. Fuck.
What a move.
Oh shit.
Reserve fuel award is based on score.
Whoa. Holy shit.
Please judge.
Whoa. That was fun. Yes.
Tap special weapon to increase performance.
Whoa, shit, I'm just running over motorcycles? What the fuck? Wow. This is
Eat
really
that,
violent.
Roadhog.
Shit. Yes.
Sensors detect fuel flow.
Alright, everybody. Thanks for joining me again on MAME Politics. This was episode 53. It was originally going to be Racing Hero, but turned into Road Blaster, so I guess we'll call this episode 53 Road Blaster. Thanks for joining me, and we'll do this again soon. And if you want access to all the hidden episodes of MAME Politics, which by now is about 1/3 of them, you can get access to them by becoming a Patreon subscriber of mine at patreon.com/Robbie Martin. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.